Welcome back. This is Brandon Banlow from Freight Brokerage Mastery. Today we're going to be talking about pre-call planning. We're going to be talking about your opening after your pre-call planning. We're going to be discussing that sales cycle again that we discussed earlier in the previous podcast. So thank you for joining us today. Let's get started.
All right. So last podcast we went over, the 7 steps sales process that you created, when, after 15 years in the business, from working at like one of the biggest brokerages, and then starting your own TTS and eventually ending, selling it. Now Let's go over the pre-call planning. So what is the pre-call planning?
So pre-call planning is really just exactly how it sounds. So you're getting together a blueprint, if you will, or a plan of action for your opening call. You don't want to spend too much time in this step because you're going to overthink it. And you really don't want to overthink it because then you're going to have so much going on in your brain that you're going to lose train of thought and probably lose a little bit of direction when you actually get that individual on the phone after you found them, like we discussed in the last podcast. So the pre-call planning is really, you want to think about it. When I get on this call, what do I want to say? You want to be able to stand out immediately. You want to address the elephant in the room. Remember, if you're a broker, if you're an agent, again, they're getting calls like this all day long, all week long. So you're going to be, no different than anybody else if you're not prepared. So in the pre-call planning, you want to take a couple minutes to learn a little bit about the company, what commodities they run, maybe their footprint a little bit of history about them, where they're shipping from, where they're delivering to, kind of what their business looks like in that pre-call planning. So you want to generate all of that information. This may take you anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes in your pre-call plan. Again, this is just at the beginning. You're going to get very, very skillful in this department as you continue to make these calls and you continue to generate your pipeline, your lead list, getting your contacts. You're going to find that probably pre-call planning is only going to take you a couple minutes as you get more seasoned in the industry as an agent or as a broker. But you really want to take some time and know what you're looking for. Like I said, the best things to look for is, one, what kind of commodities are they doing? Is there any recent information about them, publications, news articles, press releases? You can find that on their website. And then also maybe their footprint of where they're shipping from to where they're shipping to. That information is really key because it looks like you know exactly what they're doing, even if you don't know what they're doing. So information really is power in this industry. The more information you know about somebody, their company, what they're doing, the better off or the better your pre-call planning is going to go. And that will definitely translate into how your opening call will look, how it's structured, how well it goes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, the opening call as we move along through this podcast.
Yeah. And then, so just a quick question about the pre-call planning phase. So, obviously, like you mentioned, after, a long time of doing it, the research phase will take, 1 to 2 minutes at best, just once you understand your industry, your niche, and, your prospects. But what are, besides destination and the commodity, what are some other details that you, for example, when you were training brokers, your own employees, that they would miss, and that you, like, what was the difference between, when they were using that no process to now using a pre-call planning process?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is going to be knowing the pain points.
Okay.
Pain points are what you sell on. That isn't specific to this industry. That's specific to any industry. You got to know what the need is that you're trying to fill. Everybody has a need. Even if it's going well right now, there's always a need. So you need to know what their pain points are, whether it's they have a lot of shipments and they're dealing with a lot of different carriers, which is a lot of moving parts. So maybe you can talk about consolidation just to you. Obviously, as a broker, you can handle, or an agent, you can handle more volume than an asset-based carrier. But then also, I think the biggest thing too is to know the market. You have to know the market. There's going to be some markets that are really, really soft at times, and there's going to be some markets that are really, really tough at times, and you got to pay attention to that. I mean, if you're calling somebody, I'll just use North Dakota as an example. North Dakota inherently is a tough market. Doesn't matter what time of the year it is. So you want to know what that pricing looks like, and you want to know, is there capacity out there, what the pricing is that's going out of there, or if you're going into there, what the challenges are going to be. If you're coming out of there, it's always going to be, is there capacity? Can I even get a truck, into that location for a decent rate that I can tempt this prospect with? If you're going into North Dakota, then the challenge is going to be, will I find a carrier that really wants to go into North Dakota, because there's not a whole lot of freight coming out of there. I mean, North Dakota is a big state, and it's not a industrial state. It's not a real specific growing region. If you're into refrigerated freight, processing, it's really not big into that. When I think of North Dakota, I'm thinking cattle, livestock, stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
So if you're sending these trucks in there, you really got to be mindful of that market. So I think knowing the market is really the biggest thing that you can do when you're setting up your pre-call planning. Again, you want to know what markets they're pulling from. Is that market soft, or is it difficult right now? And that's something that you can play on immediately. And then you also take a look into calendar events, like holidays. Anytime a holiday comes around, prices increase. Everybody in this industry has experienced that. You get into Christmas time, obviously, just like you, people want to spend time with their families. So typically they'll shut down their trucks for a little bit. So that shrinks the capacity. And if it shrinks the capacity, the demand is still there. And if the demand is there and the supply is not there, obviously the rates are up.
Right.
But that also gives you something to sell on too, because they're generally looking for someone to help out during that time. And if you do a good job during that time and you're there and you're able to provide a service level that is very high level for them, then you really set yourself up for success for getting future freight with them, or being, a first call for them for future freight.
Yeah. So, and then, when you mention pain points, what are some of the main pain points besides capacity or the holidays that, shippers or customers are, dealing with, that a broker could, use to differentiate themselves from, the other broker that just wants to fight for the lowest rate?
Sure. So I think that's a two-part answer. One being pricing and the other being service. When you're talking about pricing, everybody's pricing is different. I mean, let's be honest. Even if you're doing RFPs and you're in contracts, they have what they call windfall tenders out there. So what they'll do is they'll send out an RFP. They'll get pricing from brokers, agents, asset-based carriers, and then they'll take that pricing. They'll compare it against the other competition side by side, and then they're going to have a ranked list. He was the cheapest, she was the cheapest, and then you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the pricing is always different. Obviously, you want to price yourself two-part there. You want to be competitive in your pricing so you can be in that topper echelon, but you also want to price at a point where you can still make some profit. You got to remember you're a business here. So I hear a lot of companies talking about right now where we just need revenue. That is not a sustainable business model. I don't know who came up with that saying, but that's a garbage saying. We just need revenue. Okay, so you're generating revenue, but you're losing money on every single load. How is that sustainable? That's not
Right.
sustainable. That's garbage. You're a business. You need to be profitable, just like the counterpart on the other side, your customer. They need to generate profit in order to be profitable, in order to continue business and grow and not go bankrupt. So pricing, you want to be very mindful of that. I think that sets you apart. So make sure, again, it's going back to what I was saying earlier, making sure you know the market.
Mm-hmm.
So really do your research on the market. If you don't know the market that you're trying to sell in, you should be very mindful and dive deep into that market so that you understand the ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster in this industry. Sometimes it's really in your favor. Sometimes it's really not in your favor. So where are you at in this particular time of the calendar year when you're trying to make that prospecting call? So pricing is a really good one to pay attention to. The other one is service. Look, I've said this before in other podcasts. I'm a firm believer in it. Service level and communication will set you apart from your competition. That is a pain point for every single customer out there. They don't get the communication and they don't get the service level. And they are kind of the same hand in hand. When we're talking about service level, we're not just talking about, hey, I picked it up on time and I delivered it on time. Well, that's great. You can do that out of 10 times, probably 9 times, where you won't have any problems. And if you're doing it 9 out of 10 times, that's really good. If you're doing it out of 10 out of 10, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But the other portion of that is going to be the communication. Look, when they're dealing with asset-based carriers, The biggest challenge for them is these guys, they're having to reach out to get these updates. They're not sending them in on a regular occurrence like we talked about in other podcasts. You want to set yourself apart, you over communicate with your customer. I'm talking, having your updates into them prior to them even getting in the office. Does it mean you have to get up earlier and stay a little bit later? Yeah, probably. But you have to remember, you're trying to set yourself apart from your competition. They want to look at you and say, hey, when I give X, Y, and Z 10 loads, I never have to guess at where they're at. This individual is communicating with me. He's over communicating with me. She's over communicating with me. I don't have to ask where my shipments are at. I trust that everything that they're doing is exactly what I need. So you're really ensuring case counts. You're verifying it if there is a discrepancy, because a lot of times you'll get to a shipper there and you have a tender from your customer and it says, hey, it's supposed to be X number of pallets or X number of cases, whatever the case may be. You get there and you find out that it's changed. They didn't load that. So there's your first opportunity to be over communicative and say, hey, look, customer, you said it was going to be this. This is all that they loaded. Are we good to go? Don't just load it and then get on the road. And then when you get to the other side and it gets delivered and you turn your bill of lading, have them questioning what happened to the rest of the product. It could be a simple mistake at the shipper, or maybe they just didn't have enough pallets or enough product to load. Either way, you want to communicate that with your customer. And then your in-transit updates. Always make sure that you get them their updates prior to them asking. If they're reaching out for you and saying, hey, update please, you're already behind the curve. You haven't set yourself apart in any way, shape, or form. This is the easiest and most simple path to success in this industry. Over communicate and show that level of service that, hey, you don't need to worry about me. When you give me something, not only am I going to get it done every single time, but I'm going to make sure that your ass is covered on your side too. I got the correct pallet counts. I'm giving you your updates so that you can relay it to your sales team. They can relay it to their buyers. You want to make sure that you're really covering those bases. Those are the two biggest factors that can set you apart, and those are the two biggest pain points when you're talking about customers. It's going to be pricing, service, and communication.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so before we go into the calling phase, so the opening call, which is, essentially the intro call, what are some objections that they should expect, especially in that opening call? What are the most common ones, and how should they overcome them?
Yeah, so you're going to hear a lot of different objections. I mean, there's people make up, all kinds of objections. But probably the most common ones you're going to hear are, we're not setting anybody up right now. We're all set. We only use asset-based carriers. I don't have enough freight for the current guys that I have running right now. Those are going to be your common objections. If you're talking to somebody that says, we're not signing on anybody right now, that's okay. Maybe they're under contract. You can dive deeper into that. Okay, I understand that. It makes complete sense. Are you guys on a current RFP? When does that next RFP come up? So you're getting more information there too by asking those questions. Then, if you're talking to somebody and they're giving you the objection of, I only use asset-based carriers. We touched on that last time. That's great. Wonderful. So do I. I represent the smaller fleet carriers out there, the entrepreneurs in the trucking industry versus the big fleets. So again, recognize the elephant in the room. You're going to hear that objection a lot. I only use asset-based carriers. I don't use brokers. Well, there are, again, like we talked about last time, there is advantages to using brokers. I talked to a company earlier this week, and we went over just that. He was hearing a lot of, I don't use brokers, I use asset-based carriers. And then, we went over that objection and how to handle that. And what ended up happening was later on in the week, he said, hey, look, this client called and said, I got a shipment here. I got a problem. I had an asset-based carrier on it. The shipment changed prior to loading. They couldn't do it. Do you have any availability? So again, remember that with an asset-based carrier, there's not a whole lot of flexibility for your client. If they're using strictly asset-based carriers and they have complex shipments, and by complex shipments, I mean shipments that could change in transit, or they end up having to change last minute versus loading location or delivery location or in transit modification. Those are good points to sell on as a broker. Look, I represent the smaller guy who has a lot more flexibility. One, I can go out and I can price all of these different carriers for you, so you don't have to do that. I can bring you the most competitive price with an individual or trucking company that's going to provide the best service. But also, these guys are flexible. They're over-the-road carriers. They don't need that front haul or back haul. They're willing to take the shipment. And if you do have some modifications, whether it's pickup or delivery, we can handle that. It's not going to be an issue for us. I've seen outfits out there that had, shipments that delivered into a location out in Denver, Colorado. If you've delivered out into Denver, if you get outside of Denver, there's not a whole lot going on out there. You're in the mountains. There's just not a whole lot of other shipping opportunities out there. Long story short, they delivered into there, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. There was extra product loaded on the truck. Well, one, we should have been doing our case counts prior to leaving. We would have known right then with a pallet count or case count that, hey, they loaded extra product.
Yeah.
So right there goes back to that communication and service level. Make sure you're verifying that with your customer, because if they would have known that at shipping, they wouldn't have been in the situation they were in already. But they were in that situation, so they had extra product on the truck. They were in Denver, Colorado. And then the customer says, well, hey, I need it delivered over to Montana. Montana's not even close to Colorado. Not even close. And so you got to go back and negotiate with your carrier. And if it's an asset-based carrier that they put on that shipment, he's going to tell them no.
Yeah.
I promise you, 99 out of 100 times they're going to tell them no. Find a cross-dock location, find a storage unit. We will drop it off there, and you can send in another truck to pick it up. So again, that's another advantage for you as a broker or agent. You're able to have that flexibility because of the owner-operators and the small fleets that you use, because they're over-the-road guys. They're really just trying to keep their trucks running. They're open to go anywhere. They're licensed in all, the lower 48. So they're willing to go anywhere. Is it going to come down to price? Yeah, it's going to come down to price. But you won't have to worry about, hey, telling your customer, we need to drop it off at a storage unit. That's already a problem for them, because now they got to worry about their product being stored in a facility. They have no idea what's going on there. Then they got to get another truck, or you got to get another truck in there. So that's a real problem that you don't want to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think that's a challenge that, you can overcome when you hear that objection is, I don't use brokerages, or I only use asset-based carriers. So you're going to hear a lot of that. And then you're also going to hear, we're not signing anybody on right now, or you're going to hear, I don't have enough to keep my current guys running. Again, the market is very, very soft right now. You guys that are in the industry right now or have been, you know how much it's changed in the last year and a half, 2 years. The market is not in your favor. It's in the shipper's favor. It's in your customer's favor. They can get competitive pricing right now, and they still have the same amount of shipments. They just have a lot more people calling them to get those shipments, because, again, the market's soft, so it's very competitive. So play on that. Look, I understand, you don't have enough to keep your current guys rolling. All I want to do is let you know about my services, and I want to get you some pricing so that you can look at it and compare it with what you're currently running right now. If it comes down to that, it's really going to be a pricing war, and there's different ways to handle that pricing war and to get them to take a look at your services. We might have talked about it in some earlier podcasts, and we can probably talk about it later on in some of these other podcasts, but there's some unique ways to really turn their eye towards you. If it's a pricing war, or if it's, we're just not signing anybody right now, or I don't have enough people, or I don't have enough freight for my current carriers. There's some unique ways to handle that. But again, that will come down to you knowing the email for that contact, because you're not going to call them every day if you've got that objection already. You're going to want to use that email as not a baiting tool, but as a hunting tactic. You're going to use that to your advantage, and you're going to send some strategic emails throughout the week to, one, stay on their radar, and two, try to bait them with pricing. The other thing you can do with companies that you're hearing these objections from, catch them at a tough time. Again, know your market. If there's a specific holiday that's going on, and again, it doesn't have to be an American holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. Those are great holidays to catch them in, because typically the volume is up and the capacity is lower, because, again, those truckers want to spend time with their families too. So prices are up and capacity is down. So you can catch them at that time. But there's also other holidays out there that are not on the American calendar that you should be mindful of. There's a lot of Muslim drivers out there. There's a lot of Indian drivers out there, Russian drivers out there, a lot of different walks of life out there. You got to remember they have holidays too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that kind of holiday is coming up, that's a good time for you to wait. I mean, you think of yourself as the hunter waiting for the prey out in the field. When is the good time to take the shot? Those are perfect times to take the shot. I mean, when you know capacity is going to be shrunk and it's going to be extremely difficult, whether it's DOT week or it's a holiday, that is where really when you want to hit the phone extra.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, get in front of that client because they're having problems. They're not going to reach out to you because they have this whole Rolodex that they've been using. What they're doing during that time when that capacity shrinks and the prices go up, they're going down that Rolodex. They're sending emails out to their people that are already set up in their system. They've used in the past. That's who they're reaching out to, but they're not getting any responses, or they're getting, I don't have any capacity. So that's where you come in. Jump on that opportunity. Are you going to have to, maybe after Thanksgiving dinner, jump on the phone and make some calls? Probably. Christmas Day? Probably. New Year's Day? Probably. But guess what? That's your opportunity. You got to look at the best times to hunt. And sometimes those holidays, when it's inconvenient for you, is the best time to hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing about objections too, like you mentioned, what when they get an objection, because a lot of times they're just smoke screen. I mean, it's just like a pretty much an instinct to just like, you know,
Yeah.
they just react with that. Like sometimes it's not even something that it's not even true. They just don't want to talk to you right now because they probably get God knows how many calls or emails every single day, right? So,
Right.
and a lot of them are from people who are not even like, they're just not good brokers. They're not, because in every market industry, there's people who are good and who are not good. So they don't want to deal with people who are not, reliable, like they don't run a good business. So when it comes to that, how could they know if it's a real objection, especially in the freight brokerage in the freight brokerage industry?
Yeah, again, it goes back to market. Knowing the market and knowing the company that you're going after.
Mhm.
What's their sales cycle look like? So you may be calling literally at the wrong time.
Yeah.
They could be in a down time for the year. If you're calling, I'm gonna use produce as an example here because it's an easier one to go on. But if you're calling somebody that does field watermelons down in Florida, if you're calling them in December and January talking about field watermelons, they're going to tell you, I don't have anything right now. It's not a good time. Well, yeah, no, it's not a good time because anybody in the produce market knows that field watermelons don't come out of Florida until late March going into April. And it's a very short window down there before the rainy season starts. So you're hunting in the wrong location at the wrong time. So that is a legitimate objection. They really don't have anything. Most of your other objections that you hear, to your point, are knee jerk reactions. They've been conditioned, if you will, to immediately shut you down because, again, they don't know you. They get 100 calls just like you. You haven't set yourself apart. So, again, this goes back into your pre-call planning and your research before you even reach out to this customer. And then when you're reaching out to this customer or this prospect, remember that first call, you're not going to close them. So don't try to close them. This is an informational call.
Yeah.
One for you to qualify them. Do they use outside brokers? And their chances are they're going to tell you no. But that's okay. That's a common objection. They probably do. So look at their freight capacity. Again, it goes back into pre-call planning. But that first initial call is not going to be for a close. This is going to be to get you on their radar. And after that initial call, then it's going to be a lot of emails and some other strategic calling times where you can catch their attention when they have a little bit more time. But on that initial call, you're looking at 3 to 4 minutes because they're busy. So don't try to make it a 15-minute call. Don't send them an email and say, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time on a Zoom call? You either will not get a response or you'll get declined,
Mm-hmm.
one of the two. They don't know you. They're not going to spend 15 minutes with you. This is not a date. They didn't seek you out, so it's not going to happen. So don't do that. When you make your pre-call, your opening call, do your pre-call planning, jump in there, make sure you understand that, one, they're probably not going to say a whole lot, or two, they're going to throw you an objection right away. That's okay. Recognize the objection that they're throwing to you. Be prepared with a response. Keep your call very, very short, very direct and to the point, and be it informational on you, what you do, how it relates to them, and then follow up with an email like a thank you for your time, and then you start your actual sales process. That opening call is nothing more than to cement in their mind you and your company name. That is it. Do not try to close them on that first call. You're wasting your time.
Yeah. And one thing that you've talked about in the past, especially for freight brokerages, right? You always recommend to diversify when it comes to the spot market and contracts. So is there a difference when you're prospecting for either type of, like, I guess, sell, or is it all the same, or the timing is the same, or is the sales cycle the same? What's the difference, right?
So the sales cycle in general is the same. When we're talking about the sales cycle that we've been talking about on here, the sales cycle is always the same from your lead generation to your closing and the steps in between.
Yeah.
That sales cycle is always the same. Your customer sales cycle can be very different, and it's not the same to every industry, RFP, and spot freight. Again, this goes back into what segment of the industry are you working in? Are you manufacturing? Are you refrigerated? Are you frozen? Are you flatbed? Are you Conestoga? Are you drayage? Whatever the case may be, the cycle is different for them, and how they price it and how they move it is different for them. So when I talk about diversification, again, I want to be very, very clear here. Don't be that broker. Don't be that agent that says I can do it all. That's bullshit. You know it's bullshit, and I know it's bullshit. So don't do it. They know it's bullshit, which is even worse. So don't do it. Don't go in there and say, hey, maybe you get a question, what areas do you cover? Oh, any area. I can do any area. That's not true.
Yeah. They immediately
Where's your
trust.
strengths at? Yeah, be very honest with them. Where's your strengths at? Hey, look, you know what? My strength really is in the Midwest, or in the West, or in the Northeast, or Southeast, or whatever the case may be. Focus on something, and hopefully you did your pre-call planning and you know what areas they typically work out of. So focus on that area. If you know they are a California shipper and they ask you, what areas do you cover? You should immediately know, I know this individual goes out of California. This is their main shipping hub. Look, I'm really strong out of the California area. If they're located in LA or Sacramento or San Diego, look, my strengths really are in the Sacramento area, and we move out to the Midwest, or we go coast to coast from the Sacramento area. We're constantly looking for those shipments. I have a great capacity, a great carrier group out there. Our pricing is extremely competitive. We run these lanes daily. From what I saw, you guys are running similar lanes. That's the reason I reached out to you, because I do have capacity in that area, and my pricing is very, very solid. Mm-hmm. So be very direct with it. Don't be that jack of all trades. You're not the jack of all trades. Nobody's the jack of all trades. If you're in a specific segment in the industry, focus on that. And really play on your strengths. Don't go out there and try to diversify from doing Conestoga and drayage to doing refrigerated produce. Don't do that, because they're going to know immediately that you don't know what you're talking about unless you truly do both of those quite frequently. And if you don't do those frequently, the conversation is going to show. If you get on there and you start talking about Conestogas with a freight person that's involved in produce, that doesn't mean shit to them.
Right.
It really doesn't. So you want to be very mindful of that. The sales cycle shift. When we talk about diversification, we're talking about diversification as far as your client base in that segment. So don't just rely on one customer, two customers, three customers. You want, 20, 30 customers that you're getting, even one or two loads from a week or even a month. It doesn't matter. Everybody goes after the Moby Dick. And that's great, but do we all remember how Moby Dick ended? It ended good for the whale. It didn't end good for Captain Ahab seeking him out. All right? He spent a lot of time. He put his crew at risk. He got out there, and then he got his ass handed to him from Moby Dick. And that happens to a lot of brokerages and agents out there. They go after these big companies. They spend a lot of time, trying to get them onboarded, and then something happens with that company. God forbid it's a bankruptcy or something like that, and that's the only client that you had. Yeah, you were doing $30 million in revenue with them, and now you're doing zero because something changed.
Yeah.
So you want to have that diversification on your customer list is what we're talking about here. The more customers that you have, the better. And I really like the approach where you're going after the smaller shippers. Some people call them fillers. I call them fillers at time, but those fillers are the ones that are going to keep you in business because they're the ones that are very, very much relationship based.
Yeah.
And a relationship based business transaction is much better and much longer lasting than a price driven relationship when
Yeah.
you're talking about business,
Yeah.
because there's always somebody going to come out there and undercut you.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. But if you have a good relationship with a smaller unit or smaller operation, they care about that relationship. They know you. They don't want to put you on the sideline. They're even going to come to you and say, hey, look, I had this individual call me from this company. They're saying that they can get it done for this. That's another objection. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter if you're working with them already. They're already objecting because they got somebody else that's turning their head with pricing.
Yeah.
So now you have to overcome that objection. But really go after the relationship-based ones and diversify in terms of the number of customers that you have. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, so, we cover the pre-call planning, we cover the opening call. What about, what's next? What's the next part of the process, and how should that approach it, especially say after the opening call was successful, in meaning that you were able to get a hold of the decision maker.
Yep.
They know your company now, they know who you are. Obviously you didn't close them yet, but you're in their radar. What's next?
Yeah, so I mean, the next natural thing there is still overcoming objections and needs assessment. This is really where you're uncovering what the needs are of the company. Obviously, the in your face need is, they need transportation.
Yeah.
Well, of course, but what else do they need? Is it communication? Is it pricing? Is it flexibility? Is it availability? What do they need? Do they need, are they starting something new over in a new area that maybe you have some experience in and maybe they want you to help out? Is it appointment setting? If they're working with a lot of asset-based carriers, here's a good play on the asset-based carrier. Asset-based carriers do not like to or will not set up appointments. So that's something that you can play on right there. Where you're using asset-based carriers, that tells me that you're probably, setting all the appointments and doing all that legwork for them. That's time off of their plate that they can't do other things with. I'll handle that. If you're a brokerage or an agent, you have access to all of these different scheduling software systems out there that the asset-based carrier typically doesn't have access to. So, to go back to that, I just got off on a tangent there for a little bit, but that's another objection you're going to hear, and that's something that you can play off
Yeah,
of.
absolutely.
But the overcoming the objection and the needs assessment is really the next play. Uncover the need and then fulfill that need with what you're currently doing. So it's just more conversation. It's really getting that relationship on a better foundation between you and them, being more comfortable with each other, because when there's comfortability there between you two, the transaction becomes seamless. It becomes a buddy that you talk to. Hey, you going to the bar tonight? You want to go grab a beer? Yeah, man, let's go grab a beer. Or hey, man, I'm moving this weekend. You got a little bit of time to help me out here? Yeah, I got some time to help you out. That's where you want to be with these clients. That's where you want to be with the individual on the other side. Find out what their pain points are. Find out what the needs are for them. Every need may be a little bit different. Maybe it is just pricing. Maybe it's a different market that they're breaking into. Maybe it's increased volume. Maybe it's lack of communication. Maybe it's claims. Maybe it's not on time percentages, and those really translate into problems for them on their side. So fill one of those needs. Those are the main ones that they look for on their side. So uncover what the pain point is through conversation. Don't just ask them, "What's your problem?" or
Yeah.
where do you need help? Again, you're insulting them. They don't need your help. You're not saving their business.
No.
They've been doing this for a while. So do it through conversation. Do it through, relation conversation with, I've heard a lot of this going on. Are you hearing the same thing? Don't be point blank with that. You have to be kind of coy and play around that when you're doing a needs assessment, because again, you don't want to insult them. They've been doing this for a while. You're not saving the day for their company, but there is a way to uncover needs out there. Once you uncover the need, you address the need, you fulfill the need, bang, you're in. You're at the close.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people, and maybe not in just freight brokerage, but in every sales-driven industry, like they say, hey, what are your challenges? What are your problems? No one is going to tell you that.
Nope.
Because like you said, you're the one seeking them out. You're the one that needs to, number one, understand the market enough to know what problems they're dealing with. so that you
Correct.
can bring them up, and then like that's a great question, and I think that's one of the best questions that new brokers or brokerages overall they can ask. Like hey,
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of customers are dealing with this. Are you hearing the same, or are you dealing with the same thing? And I think and it opens things up, because now, number one, they trust you because they see you as an authority, an expert in that market, and then two, it's a conversational way of asking that question, because
It is.
someone asks you what is the problem you're dealing with right now? Like, I don't have any
Nothing.
problems.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
good.
perfect. I'm not going to tell you my
Yeah,
problem. Yeah, it's
exactly.
perfect. This is something that it's gonna happen even throughout the relationship. So the needs assessment never really stops. You're gonna get to a point actually inside of your conversations and your relationship with this client where you may end up being their sounding board. They may call you and say, geez, man, you know what? This is just ridiculous. This is what happened.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a need that they just gave you, and you need to address that immediately, but do it with empathy too.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. I completely understand. That's frustrating. Look, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me help you out there.
Yeah.
I don't want you dealing with that. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. That sucks. Let me make a suggestion.
Yeah.
And then go into the sale again. So if you get to that point in your relationship where they're calling you about, hey, we just had a problem with another carrier. This is what happened. Be their solution. They may call you and say exactly what we talked about earlier in the in the conversation here today. They may call you and say we had a rejection. This carrier, God, he won't do it. He won't move the truck. He's making us offload it over here and pick it up. Hey, that's not a problem. I'll get a truck over there right now. When is he dropping off over there? That sucks. You got to deal with that. I don't want you stressing about it. Let me take care of it. I'll get a truck over there. Where does it need to go? When does it pick up? When do you need it to deliver? Be the solution.
Yeah.
Don't be part of the problem. Even if it is a problem for you, don't relay it as a problem. You are always the solution. You are never the problem. You are never bitching to your client about what's going on in you. You are always, I got it taken care of. I know how to handle it. I am your solution.
Yeah.
Be the solution, and you will be their first call.
Yeah. And that's a great point, man, because a lot of people probably see themselves as just like a middleman, as like, hey, I just want to take a percentage of whatever the price is, but you are a problem solver. You're the reason they probably hiring you is because they don't want to deal with everything that you deal with, which is finding a carrier, tracking, tracing, dealing with claims, all of that stuff. That's what you bring to the table. So
that's right.
Yeah. So and then once you go after uncovering the need, you have they understand. Okay, you understand why what they need now. What's the next step? How do you go about closing and then going from there?
So once you've uncovered the need, then it's really solution design and proposal at that point. That could be done on the phone. It could be done on the email. Maybe you've heard the need and you want to address it right there on the phone and say, I can take care of that, kind of like the situation we just talked about. Or maybe you've heard something in a roundabout way that says, okay, let me formulate an email, reiterate what you talked about, what you understand the problem to be. Here's what I can do, or here's how I can solve that problem. But then it really, after the needs assessment and understanding that, you're really at a solution design and closing phase. Solution design is just a fancy way of saying, hey, I understand the need. I've uncovered it. I know how to address it. And now the close is simply that. I mean, it really is very point blank. I'm closing the deal because I have I've uncovered the need, I've addressed the need or the problem, and I have the solution. Here's my solution. Here's my price. Here's my service level. Here's what I can do for you to make it better for you, to make your life easier so you can spend more time with your family. Let me be the workhorse for you. So now you're at the closing phase. And once you get to this point, after you've uncovered the need, the problem, the pain points for the client, you should be ready to close that client. If you've gotten this far in the sales cycle, you're at the closing stage. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to close them and at least get one load. Remember, I've told this to all my salespeople in the past. You are not looking, and again, you can tell this to your client too. I'm not looking to change anything you have going on right now. What I'm looking to do is to show you a difference, the difference that I can make for you and for your company. And in order to do that, I only need one shipment. Let me show it on one shipment.
Yeah.
Give me your worst friggin' lane that you have out there that nobody wants. That's a pain in the ass to cover. You know, the North Dakota lane. Nobody wants to go to North Dakota. Okay. I'll price it out. Don't underprice it because they know you're just trying to do exactly what we're talking about, but make it a competitive price, but also make it so that you're profitable. Again, you're a business. But get that one shipment. That's all you're trying to do in the close is get that one shipment, unless it's an RFP. And if it's an RFP, they're going to tell you how many shipments you're getting based off of your price.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking to close on a spot market transaction, you're looking for one shipment. You're not looking for 10, you're looking for one. So really, when you're out there hunting outside of RFPs and pricing, keep that in mind. You're not looking, you know, to sign $1 million deal over the phone or over an email conversation. You're looking for one opportunity, you know. And again, this goes back to you want that one opportunity. Look for the best times to hunt. You know, you don't go out and hunt in the middle of the day. You don't go out and fish in the heat of the day. When do you go out? When you know they're available, or when it's available to do that, or when's the best time to do that. And in sales and in business, this is no different. So if you know a pain point's coming, you know this client has freight, you haven't been able to break down the doors, sit and wait for your opportunity. Still keep up the conversation, talk about football, their family, camping, whatever you want to talk about up until that point where you know there's going to be some problems. Thanksgiving Day is tomorrow. I know that they have limited hours. I know somebody's screwing them right now. You're on the phone with them. You should be on the phone with them. Look, I'm working today. I'm working tomorrow. And they even say, you're working on Thanksgiving? Yeah, I'm working all the time. I'm always in the office. This is my business. This is what I do. I eat, sleep, and breathe this. So I'm always available to you. You got my cell phone number, but look for the opportune time to connect with them and to get that one shipment. And I'm telling you, if you really hunt on those days, like the holidays we talked about, man, if you had clients that you couldn't sign, these are the best times to sign them because they want to get home to their family too. And they're going to be stressed. And at that point, you can be very direct with them. You don't have to have all the frills and bells and whistles of a sales call. Look, I know it's very chaotic today. I want to get you out of there home to your family. I have capacity in that area where you know they're shipping from or shipping points from. I have capacity out there right now. Let me help you get out of the office. What do you need? This is where you can be that direct on those occasions. Not any other occasion, but on the tough market situations, you can be very direct right then. Then you can ask, what are you working on today? Who left you hanging? Where do you need the trucks? That's when you can ask those questions. So there is a time that you can ask them. Generally, we talk about not saying that, but in some instances, you can say that. And on the holidays, it's a great time to do it because you got to remember, they're stressed. They want to get home to their family. I'm sure you guys have families too, and you want to get home to them, but you chose this industry. This is what you wanted. This is what you're trying to build. So be there for them. Be the solution for them when they're having problems. And then when you are the solution in the tough times, you're going to be the solution in the easy times too. Well, this guy saved my ass on Christmas Day. I'm going to give him some freight. And I'll tell you guys a very cool story. This happened to me at the beginning of my sales career. I was working on this client. I wasn't getting anywhere with them. You know, calls after calls. I knew they had a ton of freight. They were working on the spot market. They had plenty of carriers that they were working with. Couldn't break them down. You know, I talked to everybody inside of that company, from the transportation manager to everybody on the sales team. You know, my next calls were going to be to the vice president of operations, whatever. So I was looking for any and every way I could get them. Couldn't get them. Christmas came around. I talked to him 2 days before Christmas. Nope, we're all set. We got everything covered. Okay, are you guys open Christmas Day? Yeah, we have limited hours Christmas Day. We're shipping on Christmas Day. Damn, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. You going to be working from home or are you going to be in the office? Well, I'm going to be in the office for a little bit, but I'm going to get my ass out of here real quick. Okay, well, if you need anything, again, I'm going to be working myself. I want to make sure you got my cell phone number. If you need something, give me a call. Okay, I think we're all set, but thanks. I appreciate it. Great. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you. I'll touch base with you just to see. Christmas Day comes around. I'm sitting there with family. I'm opening presents, doing that whole family gathering thing, which is what I assume that they're doing on their other side. And, you know, I open up my laptop because we got up early like every other family to open presents. Open up my laptop at 7:30. I send out my updates. And then what I did next made the difference in my career after that. I shot everybody. I took the time and shot everybody on my a prospect list, the guys that I was at the closing stage with, a Merry Christmas. Hope you having a good holiday. I'm available today if you need something. I got one response. One response on probably 80 emails I sent out that morning. But I got that response in probably within 25 minutes of me sending that email. My phone dinged and I was like, looked at it, and it was the client I'd been trying to sign. And the email was very, very, very direct. Do you have a truck that can get here by noon? Going from here to here. I didn't have a truck, but guess what I said? Yeah, I got a truck. I'm on it. And so I immediately turned around and told my family I got to work for a little bit. And they're looking at me like I'm friggin' crazy.
Yeah.
What do you mean you got to work? It's Christmas Day. Yeah, but freight doesn't stop on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It's still moving. So I immediately went downstairs, opened up my laptop, gave the client a call and said, hey, I got your email. You need a truck from here by noon to go over to here. Yes, I do. Okay. Do you have a price in mind that you need to be at? I want to try to work within your budget. It may be a little bit more expensive because it is last minute on the holiday, but I want to try to work within your budget. His answer was simple. Just get me the truck.
Yeah.
He wanted to get out of there. That's exactly what I did. I went out, I sourced with my network, and I got the truck. I called one of my carriers that I knew had worked out of the area, and he's like, yeah, I'm at a truck stop. He's like, I didn't really want to do anything today. And I said, look, I need this. I need your help. What's it going to take to get you over there, pick this up, and deliver it here? I'll make it worth your while. He gave me a price. I knew that price was outlandish.
Yeah.
I went back to the customer, and I know I told you in the previous conversations in here, it's a business, be profitable, but I knew the gravity of getting this shipment for this client and how it was going to impact me in the future. So I made a gamble. I went back to him and I priced it over what his budget was, obviously, but it wasn't profitable for me. I think I lost 150, 200 bucks on the load, but what I wanted was the opportunity to show the service level, which we've talked about. Gave him the price, and all he said was, get it done. The tender came over immediately. I got the truck over. The truck, amazingly, and thank God, was literally 20 minutes from this facility. So I sent him over there. Truck checked in. I called him immediately when the guy said, hey, I just checked in at the gate. Called him up and I said, hey, truck's at the gate. Do you want him on the door? Are you serious? The truck's here? Yes, the truck's there. Put him on door 5. Called the truck back, put him on door 5. Called the customer back. This is what we're talking about, communication and service level. Truck is on door 5. He's backed in. He's getting loaded right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you Monday.
Yeah.
That was the last conversation I had with him until Monday. When Monday came around, the freight started rolling in.
Yeah.
And from then, they were a long-lasting customer throughout my entire career. Worked with them for 10, 11 years before I got out of the industry.
Yeah. And then, that's because when you mentioned that you should not lose money or you should always be profitable, there's absolutely instances, because it's never like, obviously there's exceptions, like in that situation when you were like, if you show them that you could solve their problems, because that's what you did, you just solved their problems. Sometimes you can take a loss, but that you're probably gonna make 10 times 100x times more over the long time, because they trust you now that you show them. But absolutely,
like I said,
you probably
150.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do that with with the average customer, but people like that that you're chasing because they are, they are like a whale, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great story, man. Especially in Christmas.
You can take that, however you want to take it. Like I said, we talked about not losing money, but there's times when it's okay to lose something on a shipment if that gets your foot in the door. Yeah. And this was the prime example. Like I said, $150, $200. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. I wasn't losing like $5,000 or something on a couple $100. That's no different than going to a blackjack table and spending a couple hours there. You lose a couple $100. Okay, but that couple $100 turned into, over the course of that relationship, millions in revenue.
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Yeah, it's a huge difference that I think people need to understand. But but that was essentially just to get your foot in the door, not so much to that's not your business model. That it wasn't like, hey, I'm just gonna bring revenue at all costs, whatever it takes. Yeah.
That was literally just to get my foot in the door, and I saw the opportunity there to show my service level. 1, I'm available. 2, I can get it done when I say I can get it done. 3, I'm always there for you. I want to make your life easier and better. I didn't want him in there, and he appreciated that. And like I said, it butted into a really good relationship. Matter of fact, I still have a relationship with that person specifically to this day. He's not in the industry anymore. He retired, but I still have a relationship with him. That really grew into a relationship, and it also parlayed into other things because he introduced me to other people on the sales team, which continued that relationship with that company. But he also introduced me to other people, other shippers that were in that segment, and saying, "Hey, if you're not using this guy, check him out.
Yeah.
We use him. He's good. He's really good."
Yeah.
And it resulted in more business for me.
Yeah.
So that $150 loss on a Christmas day, $200 loss on a Christmas day resulted in, probably the pivotal point in my sales career. I took the time to get up that morning. I didn't say it was a day off.
Yeah.
I got up, I did my updates like we talked about. Just because it's a holiday, you should still be sending them so they know you're working. And then two, a simple Merry Christmas. If there's anything you need, let me know. I'm working.
Yeah.
And I got the response.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I think a lot of people who are maybe they're getting started in the freight brokerage industry, they're probably looking for that, that freedom, the time freedom and everything. And I think there's a lot of misinformation that are leading people to believe that this is like a 4-hour a day type of job or business. So I think people because obviously people want to sell you coaching. They want to sell you the 6-figure, work from anywhere type of
2 hours a day, you can make.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a lot of sacrifice that goes behind it, especially time wise, because like you said, freight doesn't stop. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a whatever type of time. It's like 24/7 because that's what's moving the economy anyway. So it is what it is, but. Yeah, I think it's a great disclaimer too for people who are want to get started in it, and so that they don't have the expectations that they will have a lot of time freedom, essentially, at least in the beginning. Because once you build your team, probably now it's a different story by then. But when you're getting started, you probably have to take that.
Yeah, it's a marathon when you start. I mean, you're not gonna, for the first several years, you're gonna be working your ass off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it is what it is. But you chose this industry for a reason. One, it's it is lucrative. It's very rewarding too. I personally am one of those individuals that I like the chase. I like the hunt. I like solving problems, and there's plenty of that in this industry.
Yeah.
So you chose this industry for whatever reason, but you have to remember you got to put some time into it. It's going to require your time. It's going to require some sacrifice for you too. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that at times you're going to question why you chose this industry, and your relationships and your family may have to suffer at times because you chose this industry. But at the end of the day, you chose the industry because it will help you financially, and it is rewarding personally for you, and that also translates over into your family. So take the time to build it up correctly, do it correctly, be the solution instead of the problem in the industry, and you'll thrive in the industry. You'll have a long-lasting career, and you'll be able to provide for your family. And somewhere down the road, you'll have it structured in a way that, you do get a little bit of time back, or you have the flexibility to leave in the middle of the day or work remotely from the boat or the golf course or wherever that is. But in the beginning, you're going to spend some time setting it up. But the time is worth the reward in the end. It really is. It's a very satisfying industry.
Yeah, and I think that's how you got to set expectations with people around you, just so that they know what they're getting into too. So I think, and I think it's a good time to wrap it up. And then, so next podcast, we will finish up with, the what are the last 2 steps?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the close and the repenetration of the account. So it doesn't stop at the close, and that's what we're going to talk about next time. You always circle back in there. There's more needs assessment. There's more needs to uncover. There's more pain points to uncover to expand the current operation with those clients that you're currently doing, and then also segueing it into new business from the current business that you have.
Absolutely. So, all right. So make sure you check us out. We will be releasing the 7 steps sales process document with some way more information, more detailed, actionable stuff, so that you guys can download it and use it on yourself, on your own business, or when you prospect and you get out there to get business. So make sure you click the link below and sign up to a newsletter so you can get updates. And then if you have any questions, email us at brandon@bandlow.co. And anything else
Yeah.
you like to add?
No, I'd love to hear from you. There's a lot going on in the market out there. I would love to hear your guys' challenges right now. Not just the challenges, but the successes.
Yeah.
If you've had some success, let's share it with the community. There's plenty of freight out there for everybody. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry,
Yeah.
so there's plenty out there for everybody. I'm not asking you to give, how you got it done, but if you're having some successes out there, let's share those successes. If you're having pain points, definitely bring those pain points out there. Let's talk about those. Let's address it so everybody understands what's going on out there. Really, what we want to do here is change the industry narrative on brokers and agents in general. There's a bad stigma around them. We don't want that anymore. We are the solution.
Yeah.
We should not be part of the problem. We are the solution for our clients, and we need them to understand that. And the only way for them to understand that is to change that narrative so that brokers and agents are operating in an ethical way and in a way that really changes that narrative for them. So when they think about how do I solve this problem, they're thinking about brokers and agents.
Absolutely. And that's it for today. We'll see you guys next week. And so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, to Spotify if you prefer audio, and LinkedIn, Instagram. We have a lot of content out there to help you in your, freight brokerage or even just sales overall. I mean, that you can take. There's a lot of information for not just freight brokerage too. So, all right, have a good one.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.